Mate, let me tell you, every time a debate about international football pops up around Rangers fans, the temperature goes through the roof. It is honestly wild how some folk expect you to tiptoe around opinions as if questioning a national team was some sort of sacred offense. Look, if someone wants to get worked up because I point out the obvious flaws in a squad that has struggled for years, that is on them. Nobody here is obliged to pretend things are perfect just because it is the national side. And let us be honest, supporting Rangers comes first. That is the badge we follow every single week. That is the team that defines our weekends. That is the club that shapes our mood. So when people act like we owe blind loyalty to a setup coached by a guy who openly celebrated everything connected to our biggest rivals, it is only natural that Rangers fans raise an eyebrow. But anyway, let us shift to what really matters. Our club, our concerns, and the madness we have ahead. With January creeping closer, the rumour mill is already turning like a machine at full speed, and Rangers being linked to players from all corners of the world is becoming the norm again. This time, though, the newest name doing the rounds comes from Kazakhstan, which is honestly a first for a lot of us. You hear that, and instantly your brain goes to that famous fictional character people joke about. But jokes aside, the club appears to be sniffing around a winger whose name is nearly impossible to pronounce on the first try. A lad in his early 20s, tall enough, bags of pace, versatile, and apparently packing a decent scoring record in a league none of us can truly evaluate because, let us face it, Kazakhstan is not exactly the go-to destination for scouting streams on a Saturday morning. What stands out straight away is the position, another left winger. That is the bit that makes you sit back and scratch your head. We already have a queue of players who naturally operate off that side, and some of them barely get minutes as it is. You take a youngster like Finlay Curtis, who has all the tools to grow into something special if given a chance. How does it help his development if every transfer window we bring in another lad to block his path? On top of that, we have Kasama, who can play out there, Mikey Moore, who has been showing flashes, and Oscar Cortez, who technically still belongs to us, even though he is out on loan. At some point, you start thinking we are collecting left wingers out of habit more than necessity. Now, if the boy was a natural right-sider, then that is a whole different story, because that is an area we definitely need to strengthen. But when someone is primarily a left winger, it is fair to question the logic behind the interest. His stats look decent enough, scoring and assisting at a respectable rate this season, and he seems to be heavily involved for his current team. But the level he is playing at is such an unknown quantity that it is impossible to properly judge. It is not like comparing League One to the Scottish Premiership or even the English Championship. This is guessing in the dark, hoping the talent translates to a much faster, more physical, more unforgiving environment. What is mildly encouraging is that the club appears willing to cast a wider net. For too long, we have gone shopping in the same markets, the same predictable places, often picking up players for the sake of familiarity rather than potential. Looking further afield is not a bad thing at all, as long as the recruitment is based on actual need. And right now, need is not the word you would use for another left-sided attacker. That is why the link raises eyebrows, because the priority list is already long. A proper striker, a genuine right winger, a right back who brings balance, maybe even another centre back, depending on how things unfold. Speaking of centre backs, that is the real storm cloud hanging over the weekend. Injuries have hit at the worst possible time. John Souttar picked up a knock on international duty, which is the kind of news that makes every Rangers fan let out a sigh because we have been here before. Then Derek Cornelius suffers a problem playing for Canada, and suddenly we look dangerously thin in a position where stability is everything. It leaves us scanning the squad for solutions, and one name keeps coming up: Clinton Ciala. This is where it gets interesting because the lad has been treated almost like an afterthought lately, pushed aside, criticized more than he deserves, and left out of the conversation entirely. Yet when you look at the actual games he has played for Rangers, the results are far from disastrous. Quite the opposite, actually. In the matches he has featured in, the team has only lost once. And even though that is not solely down to him, it does show he is not the catastrophe some make him out to be. You consider the fact that he was once praised by Paolo Maldini himself, a man who knows more about defending than most people on the planet. And it becomes even stranger that he has been forgotten so quickly. Yes, he has made mistakes, as every young defender does, but to be benched indefinitely while the squad is stretched to breaking point feels unnecessary. When you are heading into a match against Livingston with your two main centre-backs potentially out, why would you not turn to someone who has the physicality, the pedigree, and the potential to step in? A three-at-the-back system needs balance, and having a naturally left-footed defender brings that balance automatically. And Ciala fits that mold. The alternatives are players out of position or guys who have struggled when asked to fill in. If we are being honest, it feels like the perfect moment to bring him back into the fold. We are paying his wages. He trains with the team. He has been around the squad the entire season. So why would he not be considered? You cannot keep a player in limbo forever, especially when he could provide exactly what we lack right now. A backline involving Tavernier, Fernandez, and Ciala does not sound outrageous in the slightest given the circumstances. And if Dujon Sterling is available and needed at the back, that only adds to the possible shapes we could use. It may not be ideal, but it is far from hopeless. And when the alternatives are patchwork solutions that do not suit the system, giving Ciala a proper shot makes more sense than pretending he does not exist. And the thing is, when you really step back and look at the situation, it becomes even clearer just how strange the whole centre-back picture has been for months. We have rotated, improvised, shuffled pieces around like a puzzle, missing 2 or 3 edges, and somehow we are surprised every time a defender picks up an injury. A squad playing high-intensity football in a league as physical as ours needs depth in that area, yet we walk into big fixtures with only a handful of natural options fit and available. That is exactly how you end up scrambling for quick fixes or relying on lads playing out of position, which never brings confidence to anyone. And now, smack in the middle of a stretch where consistency is crucial, we might be forced into making decisions that should have been sorted long ago. You watch the way the team has tried to build possession from the back since the new system came in, and it makes it even more baffling that someone like Ciala has been treated as if he is radioactive. This is a player who looks far more comfortable carrying the ball forward than some of the others we have relied on. He is brave enough to step into midfield. He has a bit of composure on the ball, and he is not scared to try forward passes rather than just shifting it sideways. That alone should give him a legitimate shout in a weekend where we could be forced to construct a defense almost from scratch. People forget that a defensive unit is not only about tackles and blocks. It is about how quickly you can get the ball back into play. how you can turn defense into attack, and how you can give shape to the entire team. A left footer on that side opens passing lanes that a right footer cannot naturally hit. Those small things change the way the match flows, especially against teams who sit deep. And then you add Livingston into the mix, a team that loves to dig in, crowd the box, and force you to break them down with patience rather than power. A defender who can split lines with a diagonal or move forward to drag their shape around becomes even more valuable. That is why the dismissal of Nsiala feels so unnecessary at this moment. It is not as if we are facing a rampant European opponent away from home. This is a match that should be manageable as long as we do not make it harder than it needs to be. The fans know it, the squad knows it, and deep down, the coaching staff will know it too. Sometimes the obvious answer is the one you've been ignoring. What also needs addressing is the mentality around these younger players. You see a lot of supporters writing off lads before they have even completed a run of games, as if development is supposed to be a smooth, perfect journey without growing pains. Every defender in world football has gone through spells where they looked shaky. Even absolute legends had rough patches early on. Yet, at Rangers, one bad moment turns into a narrative that sticks for months. That pressure is part of the club, but the solution cannot be burying someone permanently. The long-term health of the squad depends on giving these boys a chance to show what they can truly become. Otherwise, we will keep repeating the same cycle of panic buys, forced loans, and squad rebuilds every season. And speaking of repeating cycles, the injury problems we face right now feel all too familiar. Sutar getting hurt on international duty is almost a story we could recite from memory. Every time he starts finding form, something happens. Cornelius has been solid, dependable, a breath of fresh air in many ways, and suddenly he is off with a national team that barely anyone watches unless they are directly involved. Now, here we are again, looking at patched-up backlines, emergency plans, last-minute changes, and hoping the worst-case scenario does not show up on match day. You cannot build a title challenge on hope alone. You need structure, depth, and a clear plan. And right now, the plan kind of needs to include every available defender, including the ones who have been frozen out. It is moments like this where leadership becomes absolutely crucial. Tavernier, love him or criticize him, still carries that presence where he can calm the chaos around him. You can easily imagine him dropping a bit deeper, taking on more responsibility, doing that hybrid role that he sometimes thrives in. A back three with him on the right side gives a sense of stability, at least enough to get us through a match like this. Fernandez is still adapting, still learning what it means to wear the badge, but he has the tools. He just needs the right partners around him. Lads who complement his strengths rather than expose his weaknesses. And for that left side, the obvious option stares us right in the face. Another piece of this puzzle is how the midfield reacts to a makeshift defense. You cannot expect an improvised backline to hold steady if the midfield does not track runners, press properly, and offer passing options. Sometimes people look at defenders as if they operate in isolation, when in reality they rely heavily on the movement in front of them. If the midfield collapses or drifts, the defenders are left scrambling. That is why giving Nsiala a role might actually make the entire unit more coherent, not less. He is used to playing progressive passes, used to stepping into spaces, and that could help us control the rhythm better. The thought of throwing a midfielder back there instead, or relying on someone uncomfortable on their weaker side, is far riskier, and that brings us back to the broader question of recruitment, because these problems are connected. When you do not sign for need, you end up unbalanced, you end up overloaded in some positions and painfully thin in others. This link to the Kazakh winger might be nothing more than early window noise, but it highlights a pattern we have seen before. You cannot build an elite squad by stacking the same type of player every season. You need variation, you need specialists, and you need the right personalities for the right roles. Right now, a new winger from a league almost nobody follows does not solve the issues staring us right in the face. A striker who can actually bury chances does. A right winger who brings directness does. A right back who can defend one-on-one does. And perhaps most importantly, giving a defender already in the building a proper chance does. You look at teams across Europe who have made progress by trusting their younger players at the right time. They do not wait until everything is perfect. They throw them in when the squad needs it, when the moment demands it, and let them grow. Sometimes that is the spark that changes a career. Nsiala is at that crossroads. Either he gets back on the pitch soon, or he becomes another name. Lost in the shuffle, another young player who had potential but never got the runway. That would be a waste, especially when the timing is practically begging for him to be brought back. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to get all the exclusive news about Rangers FC. Don't overlook any details about your beloved team. It's crucial for Rangers FC fans. A whisper's been drifting through Govan like a late-night ha rolling in off the Clyde, and it's growing louder with every passing hour. Word is that Rangers have moved smartly, quietly, and maybe even boldly to secure CAMERON CARTER-VICKERS as the new marshal at the back. A move that's left folk across Scottish Fitba scratching their hides and raising their brows in equal measure. There's no grand announcement, no fanfare, just the steady rumor of a deal that would, if true, signal a shift in intent that the rest of the league will find hard to ignore. Supporters at Ibrox have long craved a figure with presence, someone who can bark orders, step into tackles without a flicker of doubt, and bring the kind of composure that keeps a back line from wobbling when the pressure piles on. And the chatter suggests Carter-Vickers fits that bill like a glove. Some say he's already been spotted around the city, doing his best to keep the low profile of a man who kens fine well that nothing stays quiet in Glasgow for long. Others swear the whole thing started from a single overheard remark in a hospitality lounge, blown into a full-on gale by overexcited tongues. Still, there's something about the rumor that refuses to fade. It's got weight to it, a heaviness that feels deeper than the usual pub talk. Rangers, according to those in the know, or those who claim to be, want more than just another centre-half. They want a leader, a figure to anchor the entire shape of the side, someone who will not just defend but dictate. The idea of Carter-Vickers taking on that role has set imaginations racing, even if no one will go on record to confirm a thing. Whether the move is truly sealed or merely swirling about in the wind, the buzz is unmistakable. There's a sense of anticipation creeping through the support, the kind that makes folk glance at their phones a bit more often, waiting for the one message that turns rumor into reality. Until then, the burble continues. Rangers might just have their new defensive general, and the whole city can feel the ground shifting beneath it. Greetings, fans. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as it's greatly appreciated by Rangers FC. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments section below. Until the next video, stay tuned.